Racist cop punches black FBI agent, but her secret power keeps him in a state of panic. In this gripping and eye-opening video, we delve into a shocking encounter between a racist police officer and a black FBI agent. The tension rises as the officer's prejudices lead him to underestimate the agent, resulting in a confrontation that is as intense as it is revealing. Unaware of the agent's true identity, the cop's actions quickly spiral out of control, showcasing a raw and unsettling display of power dynamics and racial bias. If you are enthusiastic about this narrative, please inform us. If you appreciated the video, press 1. If not, select 0. Your feedback genuinely motivates me to collect additional uplifting and significant narratives.
Stories like this to life. It was supposed to be a peaceful afternoon, a simple day at the park with her young niece, nothing more. Anna Taylor, an experienced FBI agent deeply committed to both her job and her family, was savoring a rare moment of relaxation. Sitting on a bench with her 7-year-old niece, Emily, she laughed heartily at the child's innocent jokes, enjoying the serenity around them. Everything seemed perfect until Anna noticed him. A police officer, Jack Malone, with a tall, broad frame, stood at a distance, staring intently. His gaze wasn't casual. It carried a hostile edge, as if Anna and Emily's mere presence in the park was somehow wrong. Jack didn't approach immediately. He stood there, assessing Anna from afar, narrowing his eyes whenever she smiled at Emily. It was as though he was constructing a narrative in his head, a story based solely on prejudice and assumptions. Anna felt the sharpness of Jack's stare before she even saw him. A faint sense of unease crept into her mind, but she brushed it aside, choosing instead to focus on the joyful moments with Emily. She refused to let an unfriendly gaze ruin their peaceful day. But the atmosphere changed suddenly. Without warning, Jack closed the distance between them in just a few long strides. Towering over Anna and Emily, he cast a shadow that felt as oppressive as his presence. His cold, unforgiving eyes revealed a simmering anger that couldn't be ignored. Emily, innocent and carefree, looked up at the officer with wide, curious eyes, unable to understand why he seemed so displeased. Anna, relying on her training and experience, knew this encounter wasn't going to be a simple conversation. Jack broke the silence, his voice rigid, each word laced with authority intended to intimidate. "What's your reason for being here and disturbing the peace?" His tone was more accusatory than questioning. Anna lifted her head, meeting his gaze with calm determination. Inside, a quiet anger began to brew, but she kept her composure. Parks were meant for everyone, a place for children to play and adults to enjoy a moment of tranquility amidst the city's chaos. But to Jack, Anna and Emily's presence was enough to warrant suspicion. Emily gently tugged at Anna's sleeve, her wide eyes betraying her unease. Anna squeezed her niece's hand tightly, never breaking eye contact with Jack as she responded in a steady voice. "I'm here with my niece, simply enjoying the afternoon. Is that a problem, officer?" Jack let out a derisive laugh, his lips curling into a mocking smile. Crossing his arms, he leaned in closer, as if to assert his physical dominance. "You think you can talk to me like that?" he sneered. "People like you always think you're above the law. I know your type." His words landed like a slap, laden with prejudice and dripping with contempt built over years. "This park isn't for people like you," he added, his voice low but seething with menace. Emily clung to Anna's arm, her small hand trembling as she instinctively sought safety. Though she didn't fully grasp the situation, she could sense the tension and hostility emanating from the man before them. Anna took a deep breath, holding back her growing frustration. She knew Jack was trying to provoke her, to push her into reacting in a way that would justify his aggression. But Anna wasn't one to back down easily. I'm teaching my niece that we all have a right to be here," she replied, her voice steady and firm, "and that we all deserve respect, no matter who we are." Jack let out a loud, mocking laugh, his voice echoing through the quiet park. He leaned in even closer, his tone colder and more threatening than ever. "You think you deserve respect? People like you need to learn how to earn it. It's not just given." Anna's gaze remained unwavering. She knew she couldn't retreat, not for herself, but for Emily. She couldn't let her niece grow up thinking it was acceptable to stay silent in the face of injustice. Jack continued to glare at Anna with piercing eyes as if her very presence was a personal affront to him. Crossing his arms, his posture exuded arrogance, and his voice carried a tone thick with condescension. "You think you can just show up anywhere and behave like this?" He spat, not attempting to hide his disdain. "This park isn't a place for you to cause trouble. People like you should know better." Anna didn't respond immediately. She felt Emily's small hand clutching hers tighter. The child's wide eyes filled with confusion and worry. A surge of emotion rose within Anna, not fear, but a smoldering anger. Memories from her past came flooding back, bringing with them a familiar ache. She remembered being a young girl when her father, a kind and dignified man, was stopped by a white police officer on the street. Much like Jack, that officer hadn't needed any concrete reason to belittle her father. The look in her father's eyes remained etched in her memory, a mix of pain, helplessness, and determination not to let his family see him crumble. "No, my daughter," her father had said then, his voice deep but steady. "We never bow to injustice. You must always remember that." That memory now ignited a fire within Anna, stealing her resolve. She met Jack's gaze head-on, her voice calm yet firm. "I'm here to spend time with my niece. We're not causing any trouble. If you have a problem, I suggest you take a closer look at your real reasons for being here." Jack narrowed his eyes, taking another step closer, closing the distance between them until there was almost no space left. "Are you trying to provoke me?" he challenged, his voice low and menacing. "Do you even know who you're talking to?" Emily, though young, was perceptive enough to sense the tension. Quietly, she let go of Anna's hand and took a small step back. From her pocket, she carefully pulled out her phone, her small fingers trembling slightly as she began recording. Though her hands shook, Emily held the phone steady, silently capturing every word and action. Jack wasn't aware of Emily's actions as he pressed on, his voice growing louder, drowning out the distant laughter of children playing nearby. "You think you're special, don't you? I see people like you every day, always thinking you're above the law. But let me tell you something. Here, I am the law." Anna took a deep breath, willing herself to remain composed. Her gaze briefly flickered to Emily, and she saw the determination in her niece's young eyes as she continued recording. The sight filled Anna with a deep sense of responsibility, not just to protect herself, but to set an example for Emily about standing up to injustice. "You're harassing me and my niece," Anna said, her voice now sharper and more resolute. "We've done nothing wrong. This is a public park. If you're serious about maintaining order, maybe you should start by respecting others." For a brief moment, her words seemed to catch Jack off guard, but he quickly masked his hesitation with a sneering laugh, shaking his head dismissively. "Respect? You think you deserve respect?" he mocked, his tone dripping with derision. Emily remained focused, her phone capturing every sneer, every hostile gesture. She didn't fully understand the weight of the situation, but she instinctively knew that what she was doing mattered. For Anna, the memory of her father's words burned brightly in her mind. They gave her strength now as she stood firm in the face of Jack's hostility. She refused to let him intimidate her. She refused to let Emily witness the same kind of humiliation she had seen as a child. "Yes," Anna said, her voice unwavering, her eyes locked on Jack's. "Everyone deserves respect, even people like you." Jack stepped back slightly, his piercing eyes still brimming with defiance. But instead of stopping, he abruptly reached out and grabbed Anna's arm, yanking her toward him with unnecessary force. "Enough," Jack growled, his cold gaze pressing down on her like a weight. "You're coming with me. Maybe a night in jail will teach you how to behave properly." Emily screamed, her small voice piercing through the quiet of the park as everything seemed to pause. "Let go of Aunt Anna. She didn't do anything wrong." The little girl rushed forward, clutching Anna's leg tightly, tears streaming down her face. Anna felt Emily's trembling body, and it only strengthened her resolve to stay calm. Turning to Jack, her eyes burned with determination as she said, "Officer Malone, you're abusing your power. This action isn't just wrong, it's far beyond your authority." Jack raised an eyebrow, a mocking smile creeping onto his face. "Abusing my power? Who do you think you are to speak to me like that?" Anna didn't respond immediately. She took a deep breath, her mind racing as she assessed the situation. As an FBI agent, she had been trained to handle high-pressure encounters, and she knew that remaining calm was her greatest weapon. "You're very angry," Anna said, her voice so calm that Jack hesitated for a moment. "I can see it in the way you're gripping my arm. Is it because I'm not submitting it to you? Is it because you feel the need to prove you're stronger?" Jack frowned, confusion flickering across his face. "What are you even talking about?" he snapped. "You're trying to control the situation, but in reality, you're losing control," Anna continued, her voice steady as if stating an undeniable truth. "I'm not your enemy, but you're trying to turn me into one. Why, Officer Malone? What are you trying to prove, and to whom?" Her calm, yet piercing words cut through Jack's confident facade like a blade. For a moment, he blinked, his grip on her arm loosening slightly as his mind scrambled to process her pointed observations. Emily, still clinging to Anna's leg, shouted again, her small voice filled with anger and fear. "You can't do this to my aunt. We didn't do anything wrong." Emily's outburst acted like a wake-up call. A few people in the park had started to take notice of the commotion, their curious and concerned gazes turning towards the unfolding scene. Anna realized that the moment to shift the power dynamics had arrived. "You're trying to prove you have power," she said, her eyes never leaving Jack's. "But true power isn't about imposing your will. True power is knowing when to stop." Jack clenched his jaw, his expression shifting from anger to visible uncertainty. She had hit a nerve, exposing a deeper insecurity within him. "You think no one's watching," Anna continued, her voice growing firmer. "But you're wrong. People are watching you now, not just here but beyond this park." Jack's brows furrowed, confusion and unease written across his face. In that instant, Anna knew she had gained the upper hand. "Emily," Anna said gently, "give me your phone." Emily hesitated, her small hands shaking, but she obeyed. Reaching into her pocket, she pulled out the phone and handed it to Anna, whispering, "You can use this to show him you're right." Anna gave her niece a reassuring smile before holding the phone up in front of Jack. "You think no one will know about this?" Anna said, her tone sharper now. "But every single one of your actions has been recorded, and I'll make sure this footage is used to reveal the truth." Jack froze, his face flushing red as if caught between anger and fear. Jack took a deep breath, trying to reclaim the authority that had been shaken by Anna's composed and razor-sharp words. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low, threatening tone. You think a video will scare me? I can ruin you before you even have a chance to say a word," he hissed. Anna didn't flinch, her calm gaze holding a strength that seemed to unnerve Jack further. "So, you believe no one can touch you?" Anna asked, her voice cold and cutting. "You think that badge makes you untouchable, don't you?" Jack let out a bitter laugh, masking the creeping unease growing inside him. "You don't understand how things work here. This is my city and I make the rules." Anna drew in a steady breath, her unwavering gaze fixed on Jack. Slowly and deliberately, she reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out her FBI badge. She held it up to catch the sunlight, the federal emblem gleaming with undeniable authority. Jack's jaw tightened, his eyes flickering with anger as they landed on the badge. He froze for a moment, but quickly recovered, his bravado unyielding. "FBI?" he scoffed, though his voice faltered slightly. "You think that little badge changes anything? This is my city. You could be anyone, but here, I make the rules." Anna remained calm, raising the badge higher, the sunlight reflecting off the federal insignia, as if to emphasize the stark contrast between real authority and the power Jack had abused for so long. "Your rules?" Anna's voice was sharp, like the edge of a blade. "You don't make the rules, Jack. You were entrusted to enforce them, and you've failed." Jack opened his mouth to respond, but Anna didn't give him the chance. She stepped closer, her eyes piercing into his. "You didn't just threaten me. You harassed a child. Do you think you can keep pushing people into corners without anyone fighting back? That time is over, Jack. I've seen people like you before, and I'll see them again. But today, this stops." Jack instinctively took a step back, the cracks in his confidence starting to show. Yet, instead of conceding, he masked his growing unease with a shout, his voice echoing with desperation. "You don't know who you're dealing with. Do you think that badge puts you above me? I've been here for years. I know how to protect myself." Anna let out a dry, disdainful laugh, a hint of derision flickering across her face. "How long have you been here, Jack? And what have you accomplished besides spreading fear? Do you think no one sees the real you? Your abuse of power, the complaints you thought you could bury, they're all laid bare before me." Jack's brow furrowed, his lips pressing into a thin line. Sweat glistened on his forehead, and the cracks in his composure widened as the weight of Anna's words bore down on him. Suddenly, a commanding voice cut through the tension. "That's enough, Malone." Both Anna and Jack turned to see a tall man in a sharp suit walking toward them with an air of authority that was impossible to ignore. It was Mark Davis, Anna's longtime colleague and fellow FBI agent. Mark approached, his piercing gaze fixed on Jack as if he had pieced together the entire situation from a single glance. "Malone, you've just made the biggest mistake of your career," Mark said, his tone calm but laced with undeniable authority. He gestured to a small device on his lapel. "It's all been recorded, and not just by the girl." Emily peeked out from behind Anna, clutching her phone tightly. Her eyes glimmered with a mix of relief and determination as she saw Mark arrive. "Agent Davis," Jack stammered, his once confident voice now trembling. This is a misunderstanding. I didn't mean—" Mark raised a hand, cutting him off. "A misunderstanding? Interest and choice of words coming from someone with a history of complaints for abuse of power. Don't bother making excuses, Malone. No one's covering for you this time." Jack opened his mouth as if to protest, but no sound came out. His confidence had crumbled entirely. Anna's gaze never wavered as she addressed Jack once more. "I've faced people like you throughout my career. People who think that the badge on their chest grants them unlimited power. But you're wrong. True power comes from protecting and respecting others, not from intimidating them. Mark nodded in agreement. Malone, you've used your badge to bully and harm the people you were sworn to protect. Now, you'll answer for all of it. Jack staggered back a step, his face pale. He had been reprimanded before for similar behavior, but his superiors had always shielded him. This time, there was no one left to save him. Anna knelt and placed her hands gently on Emily's shoulders. You were amazing, Emily. You're so brave. Emily smiled shakily, her eyes still reflecting the intensity of the moment. You're going to fix this, right, Aunt Anna? Anna nodded, standing tall and turning to Mark. It's time for justice to be served. Mark gave her a resolute nod. Don't worry, Anna. Malone won't escape the consequences this time. Jack stood there, his breathing ragged, as if the entire world was closing in on him. His face was etched with despair and fear, and the confident demeanor he usually wore was now completely shattered. Anna's voice sliced through the tension like a knife. This time, Jack, there's nowhere left for you to run. Those words echoed in Jack's mind, a grim confirmation that everything had come to an end. His lips moved faintly, perhaps in an attempt at a futile excuse, but deep down, he knew no one here would believe him anymore. Not Anna, not Mark, and certainly not the curious onlookers whose piercing gazes seemed to strip him bare. From a distance, Mark signaled to a group of internal officers. They moved swiftly toward Jack, surrounding him. The heavy sound of their footsteps drove home the reality that there was no escape this time. The clinking of handcuffs made Jack shudder, and every step the officers took pushed him closer to the truth he could no longer evade. Anna maintained her composure, bending down to take Emily's hand. Let's go, sweetheart, she said gently. As they left the park, Jack's faint voice called out behind them, perhaps a plea for forgiveness or an explanation. But Anna didn't turn back. She didn't need to. Jack's actions over the years had caused immense pain, and now justice would have the final say. Stepping out of the park, the oppressive air seemed to lift, replaced by the gentle hum of the city outside. Emily gripped Anna's hand tighter, her small fingers clinging to the strength she needed to process the moment. Aunt Anna, everything's okay now, right? Emily's voice was soft, almost hesitant, her eyes searching her aunt's face for reassurance. Anna stopped, kneeling so her eyes were level with Emily's. She placed her hands on the little girl's cheeks, her smile warm yet resolute. Yes, sweetheart. Justice will take care of the rest now. Emily managed a small smile, but Anna could still see the lingering worry and fear in her niece's eyes. How could there not be? Witnessing such chaos was a heavy burden for a child. Anna silently vowed to do everything in her power to ensure Emily would grow up in peace, unshadowed by Jack's mistakes. Meanwhile, Jack was led away by the officers, his head bowed. The voices around him faded into an indistinct hum, but one thought echoed relentlessly in his mind. It's over. The responsibility he had long evaded now loomed over him like a crushing weight. For years, he had deluded himself into believing he was untouchable, that his lies could remain hidden. But now, every step toward the interrogation room felt like another nail in his coffin. Mark stood at a distance, observing the scene with mixed emotions. Satisfaction, certainly, but also a tinge of regret. Jack had once been a colleague, a man of potential and opportunity, before greed and deceit consumed him. But Mark's compassion didn't deter him. The truth needs to come out, he reminded himself, following the officers with unwavering resolve. When Anna and Emily reached the car, the little girl hesitated before climbing in. Emily turned back to look at the park, her eyes thoughtful. Aunt Anna, will I have to see him again?" Anna's heart ached at the question. She gently placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, her voice firm. "No, Emily, you won't have to see him again. What happened today is no longer your burden to bear." Emily nodded, her small face still pensive. "I just want everyone to be kind to each other." Anna pulled her into a hug, holding her close. "That's a beautiful wish, sweetheart. And that's why we have to stand up for what's right, to keep everyone safe and make kindness prevail." As they drove home, Anna glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Emily gazing out the window in silence. The city blurred past them, a stream of light and shadow intertwined. Anna knew this moment marked a turning point, not just for Jack, but for herself and Emily as well. They had faced the darkness together, and now they were stepping into the light of a future free of fear. Within Anna, a renewed determination took root. This story wasn't just about punishing Jack. It was about ensuring that Emily, and anyone else who had suffered similarly, would never feel powerless again. As the car moved farther from the park, the setting sun bathed the city in golden light, a quiet promise of new beginnings. The following day, Anna arrived at the FBI office armed with a trove of evidence: Emily's video, audio recordings from Mark's body camera, and testimonies from witnesses at the park. The evidence was promptly sent to the Internal Affairs Division, and within hours, a decision to suspend Jack Malone from duty was issued. News of the incident spread rapidly. Jack, once known as a by-the-book officer, was now splashed across headlines with critical accusations. Reports of his past misconduct and abuse of power were unearthed, along with testimonies from individuals who had been his victims. Now, stripped of his badge, Jack spent most of his time at home. The confidence he once carried had vanished, replaced by uncertainty and fear for his future. Jack sat alone in his dimly lit house, staring at the badge that had once symbolized his authority, now just a cold piece of metal lying on the table. The police department's Internal Affairs Unit had officially launched an investigation into his conduct, including allegations of abuse from previous cases. Meanwhile, Anna meticulously worked on a detailed report of the incident. She spent hours recounting every word, action, and reaction from Jack, ensuring that everything was accurately documented. To Anna, this was not just a personal matter. It was an opportunity to expose a system that had protected individuals like Jack for far too long. The story spread like wildfire. Within a day, the confrontation at the park was on the front pages of newspapers and trending across social media. The community quickly divided into two camps. One side rallied behind Anna, praising her as a symbol of justice. The other, including some of Jack's colleagues and conservative voices in the community, criticized her for overreacting and ruining the career of a seasoned officer. At the police department, tensions ran high. A group of officers loyal to Jack expressed their frustration. One of them, Officer Matthews, openly told colleagues, "Jack might be tough, but he's always acted for the community's best interest. Blowing this up publicly is destroying a man's life." Conversely, another group quietly supported Anna. Former victims of Jack began speaking out, sharing their stories of his abuse of power. A woman appeared in a televised interview and said, "He once threatened to arrest me because I couldn't produce my ID within 10 seconds. I was terrified every time I saw him. Thank you, Anna, for standing up when no one else would." 2 days after Jack's suspension, a group of residents organized a protest outside the police station, carrying banners and megaphones. Slogans like "Justice for all" and "No one is above the law" echoed through the neighborhood. Leading the protest was an elderly man named Mr. Harris, who had once been wrongfully detained by Jack while walking in his neighborhood. "I'll never forget the way he humiliated me in front of my neighbors," Mr. Harris said. "And I know I'm not the only one. Malone has to answer for what he's done." The protest quickly drew media attention, increasing pressure on the police department. Senior officials began worrying that the case could erode public trust in law enforcement. While justice was steadily being served, Anna couldn't avoid harsh criticism. At the FBI office, some colleagues began whispering behind her back. "She could have handled this more discreetly," a younger agent said to a coworker. "Was it really necessary to get a seasoned officer fired? Sometimes a warning is enough." Anna felt the judgment in the glances she received as she walked down the hallways. Some greeted her with forced smiles, while others avoided her entirely. Not everyone turned against her, though. Mark Davis, the steadfast teammate who had been by her side, was the only one to address her directly. "Anna, don't let their words shake you. You did the right thing. Malone crossed the line, and if not you, who else would have stood up?" Meanwhile, Jack was consumed by his fears. Each day brought another letter from Internal Affairs, demanding explanations for past complaints. His once close colleagues began distancing themselves, afraid of being implicated. Jack sat alone, staring at the badge he had once worn with pride. Now it was a symbol of a ruined career. Incidents of abuse he had once dismissed as minor now loomed over him, haunting his thoughts. One evening, after a long day at work, Anna returned home and sank into the couch. Emily, clutching her favorite blanket, came to sit beside her. "Aunt Anna, is it over now?" Emily asked, her voice tinged with worry. Anna smiled gently, brushing Emily's hair back. "Not quite yet, sweetheart, but justice is being served. That's what matters most." Emily nodded, resting her head on Anna's shoulder, bringing a fleeting sense of peace. Yet, as Anna looked out the window, she knew the road ahead was still long. In the following weeks, the internal investigation into Jack Malone expanded beyond the park incident. Old complaints were revisited, victims were interviewed, and a comprehensive picture of an officer abusing his power began to emerge. Anna knew she had done the right thing, but the pressure didn't lessen. She realized she wasn't just fighting one individual, she was challenging an entire system that had enabled people like Jack for far too long. The night that followed, while Anna was organizing files at her desk, her phone rang unexpectedly. The number displayed made her pause, a hint of surprise flashing in her eyes. "Anna, it's me, Jack Malone." A hoarse voice came through the line. Anna didn't respond immediately. The last time she had heard that voice, it was yelling threats at her in the park. "I know you have no reason to listen to me," Jack continued, his tone trembling. "But I need to talk to you, just once, to explain, to apologize." Anna deliberated for a few seconds before nodding, though she knew Jack couldn't see her. "Fine. Tomorrow at the cafe on Main Street, 9 a.m. When Anna arrived at the cafe the next morning, Jack was already seated in a corner, hunched over, his hands clasped tightly together. He looked much older than the last time she had seen him, his face gaunt, his hair beginning to gray, and his eyes devoid of the confidence they once held. Anna approached the table and hesitated for a moment before sitting across from him. Jack glanced up at her, his expression a mixture of shame and bitterness. "Thank you for coming," he began, his voice frail. "I didn't think you'd agree." "I want to hear your reason," Anna replied firmly, her gaze remaining cold. Jack was silent for a few seconds, as if struggling to find the right words. Finally, he lowered his head and spoke slowly. "I was wrong, Anna. What I did to you and your niece, there's no excuse. I abused my authority. I know that. But I need you to understand. I wasn't always this person. Jack sighed, his eyes drifting toward the window. When I was younger, I wasn't like this. I dreamed of being a good cop, just like my father. He taught me that a police officer must protect, not control. But Jack stopped, as though the weight of his memories was crushing him. But this job, the pressure, and the expectations from my family, they turned me into someone I barely recognize. Anna listened quietly, her expression unchanged. Jack continued, his voice growing weaker. Every day on the job felt like a battle. The tough cases, the criminals I couldn't control, the constant pressure from my superiors to always be strong, always be the one in charge. I let it consume me. Over time, I became bitter, angry at everything and everyone. Jack looked directly at Anna, his eyes pleading. I know you don't need to hear my excuses, but I just want you to know I never meant to become this. Anna leaned back in her chair, her gaze steady. I understand that the pressures of work can change people, she said, her tone calm but firm. But pressure is never an excuse to abuse power and harm others. Jack nodded, his shoulders slumping. I know. I've lost everything, Anna. My job, my reputation, and even the respect of my family. My wife doesn't want to see me, and my kids won't return my calls. I've destroyed everything. Anna regarded Jack for a moment, sensing the desperation in his voice. Yet she also knew that no apology, however sincere, could replace action. Jack, she said, her voice softer but still resolute, you have a choice. Mistakes don't define an entire person. But to change, you need to act, not just apologize. Jack lowered his head, gripping his empty coffee cup tightly. What should I do? He asked, his voice frail, as though he was placing all his hope in Anna's answer. Anna took a deep breath, her gaze unwavering as she looked at Jack. Start by making amends, she said. If you truly want to change, use your time to help the community you once hurt. Volunteer at community centers. Help the people who suffered because of your actions. Show them you're not just someone who wielded power carelessly. Jack nodded slowly, as though each word from Anna was sinking deeply into his mind. And, more importantly, Anna continued, learn to respect others, not because of their status or skin color, but because they're human, just like you. Jack lifted his head, a faint glimmer of hope sparking in his eyes. Do you think I can change? Anna gave a slight smile. Not a comforting one, but one that carried encouragement. Change is never easy, Jack, but it's never impossible if you truly want it. Jack nodded again, this time with determination. Thank you, Anna. I can't promise to change overnight, but I will try. For myself, for my family, and for those I've hurt. Anna stood, preparing to leave. Remember, she said, her gaze both stern and encouraging. Words are just the beginning. Real answers come through action. Jack watched as Anna walked out of the cafe, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time rising within him. Hope. Anna stepped outside, the crisp morning air gently easing the tension within her. She knew that Jack's journey toward redemption would be anything but easy. Yet she also understood that the most difficult part, taking the first step, had already been done, and for her, that was a significant leap forward. A few days after his conversation with Anna, Jack took his first steps into a local community center. It was a place he had once dismissed as irrelevant to his life, but now he understood he needed to start at the very bottom. A place where the wounds left by his actions could be felt most acutely. On his first day, no one welcomed Jack. The cold stares and whispers from staff and visitors alike made it clear that he was not wanted. Some people even muttered, "Isn't that the cop who abused his power? What's he doing here?" Jack felt the bitterness in the air, but he didn't leave. Instead, he picked up a broom from a corner and began sweeping the common area. If he couldn't talk to them yet, he would let his actions speak first. Gradually, Jack began to integrate. At first, he simply observed from a distance, listening to stories from individuals who had suffered injustices, many of which mirrored his past behavior. In time, Jack not only contributed to the center's operations, but also actively participated in workshops that educated people about their rights. He attended seminars on police accountability and even spoke at events about his journey of reckoning. Though Jack knew he couldn't undo his past, he understood that every small step forward mattered, not just for the community but also for himself. Each act of service, each moment of humility was a reminder that change was possible, as long as he continued to choose it. One day, during an open discussion at the community center, an elderly woman named Mrs. Martinez shared her harrowing experience. "They pulled me over just because I'm Latina," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't do anything wrong, but they searched my car as if I were a criminal. They didn't care about the damage they caused." Hearing her story, Jack felt a sharp pang in his chest. Her words brought back memories of his actions. He realized that what he once considered standard procedure had left deep psychological scars on people. During another session at the center, Jack met Marcus, a young man he had treated unfairly in the past. At first, Marcus refused to engage, his gaze cold and full of resentment. "Do you think an apology is enough?" Marcus asked, his voice filled with anger. "Do you even understand how you made me feel? Like I wasn't human, like I had no value." Jack looked at Marcus, his eyes filled with regret. "I know, an apology isn't enough," Jack said slowly. "I can't undo what I did, but I can change how I live my life moving forward. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I hope that one day my actions can show you that I've truly changed." Marcus didn't reply, but his expression softened slightly. As time passed, Jack didn't stop helping out at the community center. He began participating in programs focused on raising awareness of civil rights and hosting workshops against abuse of power. At a workshop organized by Justice for All, Jack took the stage for the first time. He gripped the microphone tightly, his heart pounding harder than usual. The crowd below watched him with curiosity, and some even with skepticism. "I was once a police officer," Jack began, his voice echoing in the silent hall. "I did wrong. I abused my power and hurt people I should have been protecting. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to tell you that change is possible." Jack recounted his story, from his years of arrogance fueled by power to the moment he met Anna, the person who forced him to confront his actions. He admitted that the path to redemption wasn't easy, but every passing day gave him a new reason to continue. His words left the room silent. Some people shed tears, while others nodded in agreement. Jack didn't stop there. He proactively joined reform meetings at the police department where he had worked. His presence initially caused controversy. "How do you even have the nerve to show up here?" a young officer demanded. Jack remained steadfast. "I'm not here to justify my past," he responded. "I'm here to ensure that mistakes like mine don't happen again." In these meetings, Jack proposed ethics training programs and de-escalation tactics, as well as the establishment of more transparent oversight systems to prevent abuse of power. One day, at a charity event at the community center, Jack unexpectedly crossed paths with Anna. She was there to support a civic education project for children. When Anna saw Jack, she walked over, her expression softer than before, showing a newfound understanding. "I've heard you're doing well," she said gently. Jack smiled, a sincere smile he hadn't felt in a long time. "I'm just trying to do the right thing," he said. "Without you, I don't know how much longer I would have stayed lost in my mistakes." Anna placed a hand on Jack's shoulder, looking him straight in the eyes. "You chose to change, Jack. I just asked the questions. Keep it up." Jack continued dedicating his time and energy to helping the community. He became a respected figure at the center, not only because he had changed, but because he was unafraid to share his story to help others avoid similar mistakes. In a conversation with a group of young people at the center, Jack shared, "People might think mistakes define you, but in reality, how you face and overcome those mistakes is what truly shapes who you are." Jack's words were not just lessons for the youth, but also a constant reminder to himself that redemption is a continuous journey, and every day is an opportunity to do better. Though Jack knew not everyone would forgive him, he remained persistent. Every act, from helping an elderly person find housing to mentoring a struggling young man, was a way for him to reclaim meaning in his life and atone for his past. And with each passing day, Jack didn't just feel the changes within himself, he also saw how those changes began to ripple through the people around him. One quiet morning at the office, as Anna was finishing up reports, an envelope was delivered to her desk. The envelope bore no specific return address, only a handwritten note. To Agent Anna. Curious, she opened the letter. The words inside immediately captured her attention. "Dear Agent Anna, I am Maria Martinez, one of the people affected by Jack Malone's abuse of power. I am writing to thank you. You didn't just help bring the truth to light. You gave me hope that justice truly exists. Not long ago, Jack came to see me. He apologized for what he did to me, and I could see sincerity in his eyes. It doesn't erase the pain, but it made me realize that everyone can change if they genuinely try. Thank you for your courage and determination. Your actions have not only helped me, but have brought hope to many others." Anna set the letter down, her heart heavy with emotion. She had faced criticism and doubt from her community and colleagues, yet now she knew her decision had created tangible change. Holding the letter, Anna sat quietly for a moment. Its heartfelt and appreciative tone brought her a sense of relief, as if her actions had finally brought healing and hope to those who had endured injustice. At the same time, it stirred deeper thoughts about the nature of justice and responsibility. Jack Malone, once the center of harm and chaos, was now embarking on a journey of redemption. But Anna couldn't help but wonder, is that journey enough to make amends? Can the victims truly forgive so easily? Does justice mean acknowledging one's wrongs? Or does it only come when the victims feel fully restored and at peace? These questions lingered in her mind, growing more profound with each passing moment. Justice, a concept that once seemed straightforward, now appeared far more complex. Anna thought not only about punishing those who erred, but also about the scars borne by victims, marks that could never truly be erased. Can justice be achieved if those harmed still feel unsettled? She asked herself. During a meeting at the FBI, Anna decided to voice her thoughts to her colleagues. "We always talk about the importance of justice being served," Anna began, her voice steady but firm. "But I wonder, what does true justice mean? If we only focus on punishment, does it create change? Or do we need to find ways to ensure that people, even those who have made mistakes, learn and grow so they don't repeat them?" The room fell silent for a moment before a colleague responded, "Anna, you're right. But that's not easy. Some people will never change, no matter what we do. Anna nodded, acknowledging the truth in those words. That may be, she said, but I believe we must at least create the opportunity. If we don't, we risk becoming no different from those we try to hold accountable, judging without recognizing the growth potential. A quiet agreement seemed to ripple through the room. For Anna, this wasn't just about seeking justice for individual victims. It was about building a justice system that didn't merely punish, but also offered the chance for renewal and improvement. Anna thought back to the moment she faced Jack in the park. The anger and hostility in his eyes were a mirror reflecting everything that had gone wrong in his life. If she had let her own anger take over, if she had reacted with violence or impulsivity, that situation could have escalated into disaster. She realized that confronting injustice required immense patience and self-control to avoid being consumed by negative emotions. More importantly, it demanded courage to choose the best course of action, even when it was difficult. Anna couldn't help but reflect on the system that had enabled Jack. The harm he caused wasn't solely the result of his decisions, but also a consequence of societal failings, a system that allowed misconduct to fester unchecked. What standards have we accepted without question? She wondered. A week later, Anna decided to draft a comprehensive report to her superiors, not just about Jack's case, but also about systemic changes she believed were necessary. She outlined how justice should go beyond arrests and penalties to rebuild trust for both victims and those on a path to redemption. She proposed an educational program for individuals like Jack, people capable of change if guided correctly. In a small meeting afterward, Anna presented her ideas to a group of senior colleagues. She knew it wasn't an easy proposal, but she believed in its importance. If we can help one person correct their mistakes, we don't just change their life, we protect others from future harm, she concluded. That evening, when Anna returned home, she reopened Maria Martinez's letter. Its sincere words reminded her that sometimes a single action could spark monumental change. She gazed out the window, where the city lights twinkled like a vivid mosaic, each light a story waiting to be told, an opportunity waiting to be seized. Anna smiled, her heart filled with hope. The pursuit of justice might never truly end, but she knew that every step she took mattered. Justice isn't a destination, she thought to herself. It's a journey we must continue because everyone deserves the chance to start over and be heard. In the days that followed, Jack immersed himself more deeply in community work, no longer just as a volunteer, but as a mentor and source of inspiration for those who had once strayed from the right path. He came to understand that atonement was not only about correcting his own mistakes, but also about helping others avoid the road he had taken. At a youth outreach event for troubled teens, Jack stood before a group of young people, his expression serious but sincere. They looked at him with curiosity mixed with skepticism, but Jack didn't shy away from their gazes. He began his story with an unvarnished confession. I once thought power was everything. I believed that controlling others was how I could prove my worth. But I was wrong. Power isn't something you impose on others. It's a responsibility. And if you don't wield it wisely, it will end up controlling you, just as it controlled me. The room fell silent. Some teens bowed their heads, reflecting. Others watched Jack with growing interest, their skepticism slowly giving way to attention. Jack continued, his voice steady but resolute. I hurt people. There are mistakes I can never undo, but I can do this. Stand here in front of you, sharing my story. If I can stop even one of you from taking the wrong path, Then the years I've spent trying to make amends won't be in vain." At the end of the session, a young man, around 19 years old, stepped forward. He seemed hesitant, his eyes betraying a struggle within. Finally, he spoke. "I was one of the people you treated unfairly." The room went quiet. Jack stood still, not flinching. He nodded, his eyes full of regret. "I don't know if I can forgive you," the young man continued, his voice trembling. "But I can see you're trying, and that means something to me." Jack took a deep breath and stepped closer. "Thank you for saying that. I don't expect forgiveness. It's your choice to make. But I want you to know that I won't stop trying. Every day, I work to be better than I was yesterday, and I hope that someday, if not you, then others will see that I've truly changed." These conversations weren't just opportunities for Jack to share his story. They were moments for him to learn from those he had wronged. At another meeting at a support center, Jack spoke with a middle-aged man named Carlos, someone he had oppressed in the past. Carlos stared at Jack in silence throughout their talk. Finally, as the session ended, Carlos approached him and said, "I've waited a long time to see you held accountable. I don't think I can forgive you just yet, but at least now I can see that you're making an effort." Though it wasn't full forgiveness, those words were a glimmer of hope for Jack. He realized that redemption wasn't a destination, but a long, arduous journey. Jack also became a mentor for teens who had gotten into trouble with the law. One day, he met a 16-year-old boy named Luis, who was on the brink of joining a criminal gang. Jack spent hours talking with Luis, sharing the lessons he'd learned from his own mistakes. "Luis, I used to think life was black and white. You were either the strong one or you got crushed by others. But that's a flawed way of thinking. Life isn't just black and white. There are other choices, and I'm here to help you find them," Jack said earnestly. Luis was silent for a moment before finally asking, "Do you think I still have a chance?" Jack placed a firm hand on Luis's shoulder and said, "You always have a chance, as long as you're willing to change, but you have to start today." Over time, Jack's presence at community centers and outreach events became familiar. He was no longer just a man who had made mistakes. He became a symbol of change and redemption. Gradually, he began to rebuild trust with those around him, one interaction at a time. Looking back on his journey, Jack understood that some people would never forgive him, and that was something he had to accept. But he also knew that his relentless efforts to do the right thing could create real change, not just in his life, but in the lives of those he sought to help. And with every step forward, he felt himself inch closer to the redemption he so desperately sought. On the path of rediscovery and atonement, Jack found purpose in helping others avoid the mistakes he once made. Meanwhile, Anna focused on creating peaceful moments for Emily. One weekend, she decided to take Emily to a quieter park on the outskirts of the city, a serene space with a crystal-clear lake and wide-open grassy fields. Emily's eyes lit up at the sight of the playground and children playing tag. "Aunt Anna, can I go play?" she asked eagerly. "Of course, sweetheart," Anna replied with a smile. Anna found a bench under a shady tree, a perfect spot to relax while keeping an eye on Emily. The laughter of the children and the sounds of nature around the lake created a calmness she hadn't felt in a long time. As she watched Emily, a familiar figure approached, Maria Martinez. "Agent Anna," Maria greeted warmly, her kind smile radiating genuine gratitude. "Mrs. Martinez, what a surprise," Anna replied, standing up to welcome her. "I often come here to walk," Maria explained, sitting down beside Anna. "Today, I hoped I might thank you in person." They began talking, and Maria shared how meeting Jack had eased some of the burdens she had carried for so long. "I never thought he could change, but now I see it's possible. Not everyone gets a second chance, but Jack seems to be making the most of his." Anna nodded, listening intently. "I've always believed justice isn't just about punishment. It's about creating opportunities for change. But I sometimes wonder if that truly makes a difference." Maria placed a gentle hand on Anna's. Her eyes were full of encouragement. "You did the right thing, Agent Anna. Not for Jack, but for people like me and future generations like your niece. Your actions are a reminder that everyone deserves fairness." As the sun began to set, painting the park in shades of gold and orange, Emily ran back to Anna, holding a melting ice cream cone. "Aunt Anna, I had so much fun today." Anna chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from Emily's face. "So did I, Emily." She looked out over the lake, its surface glistening with the day's last light. At this moment, Anna felt a rare sense of peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because she knew she had done what was right. The story of Jack, Maria, and the surrounding community stands as a testament to the profound meaning of justice, and a reminder that change always begins with the smallest of actions. As Anna held Emily in her arms, the child's laughter rang out in the peaceful atmosphere. Anna knew that, even though the road ahead was still long, she had done her part to ensure that future generations like Emily would grow up in a fairer world. The story concludes not only with Jack's transformation, but also with a powerful lesson learned by Anna and the community. Justice is not cold vengeance. It is humane healing. It is not solely about punishing the wrongdoer, but also about creating opportunities for repair and rebirth. Through small, meaningful acts, a sincere apology, a gesture of empathy, or an unwavering effort to make amends, justice can bring hope to both those who have suffered injustice and those who have caused it. Anna recalled Jack's gaze as he admitted his mistakes before the young people at the community center. It was more than a confession. It was a promise, a commitment to live differently and to dedicate the rest of his life to creating positive change. For Anna, that moment was proof that transformation is possible when one is willing to confront the truth and take responsibility for their actions. As the sunset painted the park in hues of gold, Anna sat on a bench, watching Emily run and play with other children. Their laughter echoed, a soothing melody in the serene environment. Anna reflected, justice isn't just a destination. It's a journey that we all must contribute to maintaining. This journey requires patience, compassion, and, sometimes, forgiveness. Anna understood that forgiveness is not always easy for those who've been wronged, but when granted, it can bring both liberation and peace. The park grew quieter as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving only the soft light filtering through the trees. Anna resolved that Jack's story, and her own, would serve as proof of an important truth. Justice is not confined to laws and courts, but lives in the hearts of individuals. It is not something distant, but is present in the way we treat one another